welcome back to another video on my channel. Something kind of funny just happened to me that I want to share with you guys. I got a new microphone, like I mentioned in one of my last videos, and it's more, I guess, like up to date than my old mic. And my old mic, I just plugged it into my camera and it started working, but this one you have to turn on, and I forgot that you had to turn it on, so I just filmed like half of this video and then realized that it had no sound. So that was kind of funny, a little bit frustrating, but kind of funny. But anyways, today I'm back with another cryptid video, and I haven't talked about a cryptid in quite a while, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this one with you guys today. So with that all being said, let's just get right into today's video. Today we are going to be talking about the Ozark Howler, also known as the hoo-hoo, the nightshade bear, and the devil cat. This creature is known to stalk the isolated areas of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. This creature is said to resemble that of a bear or a large cat. This creature is also known to have very distinctive horns on its head. It is described as having thick black hair that is described as being shaggy, and thick legs. This creature is also said to have glowing red eyes. Sometimes this creature can be seen stalking the area like a bear on all fours, but it is also known to be bipedal and is also said to be very, very fast. The sightings of this creature are extremely rare, but people do hear it more often than they see it, and it is said that before you see this creature, you will definitely hear it. And the sound that this creature makes is described as being a combination between a wolf's howl, an elk's bulge, which, to be completely honest, I didn't even know what that was until I was researching for this video, and the combination with those two things along with a hyena's laugh and a human scream. First known sighting of this creature took place in the 1800s in Missouri, and it was spotted by a man by the name of Daniel Boone. Now, Boone kind of got famous for telling this story in that area in Missouri, but the story is kind of iffy, and it's kind of gotten like twisted over the years. So in some of the stories it goes that Daniel had shot the creature, but the creature ran away after it was spotted, and nobody really knows what happened to it or where it went or anything like that. But in some of the other stories it suggests that Daniel had shot this creature and that he had taken the creature's body home as a trophy and ended up kind of stuffing it, I guess, and hanging the creature's head on his wall. Overall, the history of this creature and the stories of this creature that I could easily find online are sparse. I feel like in some cryptid cases there is so much history and backstory to the creature and you could talk about it forever, but the Ozark Howler only has a very brief history and there isn't too many details about it. I'm going to share with you guys some stories that I found online of people who encountered the Ozark Howler. Now, I know I always say this in every single one of my cryptid videos, however, none of these stories are mine. I do just want to stress that. I have never encountered an Ozark Howler or any other cryptid for that matter, and if I did, I would definitely be making my own video on that. But yeah, I've never encountered an Ozark Howler or any other cryptid. These stories are not mine, and I'm just sharing them with you guys purely for entertainment purposes. In this first story, our narrator shares that him and his wife had just started their very first overland trip, and during this time they were traveling through Arkansas and they were now in Ozark National Forest. They found this path and went up it in hopes of finding somewhere to camp, but once they got up there they realized that there was a cemetery up there and that was just too creepy for them, so they turned around and headed back down the path in hopes of finding somewhere else to set up camp. While heading through the mountainy areas, that is when they came across an area where they thought it would be a nice spot for them to set up their camp, and so they did so around 7:30 p.m. By this time the area was completely pitch black. They were in complete darkness, and while the narrator started to set up camp, that is when his wife would go out to look for logs. Now, she went out and she looked for these logs and she came back with several, but by the time she had gotten back, that is when the narrator started to kind of express the fact that something had caught his ear. After hearing this sound, the narrator asked his wife if she had heard it, and she said no, but a couple hours later, they would hear something very similar, which they described as sounding like a mixture between a human scream and an elk bulge. After they heard this, the narrator again asked his wife if she had heard it, and this time she said yes, but she just thought that maybe it was drunk people who were camping and yelling a little bit a ways from where they had set up camp. He agreed that that was the most likely scenario, and so now they were just kind of chilling out. They were just camping and trying to enjoy their time. But a little while later, that is when they started to hear the exact same sound getting closer and closer to their camp. The narrator was visibly shaken. He pulled out his gun and he pulled out his phone to kind of record what the sound was, but when he started recording, the sound stopped completely. A little while had passed and the two of them were still sitting around the fire hanging out. There was probably some alcohol flowing, however, I don't know that for sure because it wasn't included in the story, but they were definitely just hanging out, enjoying their time, and they were definitely over this sound. They weren't thinking about it, they weren't paying any mind to it, and so that is when the narrator's wife just decided that she was tired and she wanted to go to bed. So the two of them packed up, they left the fire going, and they went back into their tent to go to sleep. Narrator was still on edge and he had this gut feeling that something just wasn't right. So even though his wife was now asleep, he pretty much was just laying there wide awake listening for anything out of the ordinary. And he said after they had been in the tent for a little bit, that is when he noticed the sound of leaves crunching and branches breaking as if something was walking around the area. These sounds of something walking around the area had lasted about 30 minutes, but the narrator was so shaken that he had laid there just listening for sounds of anything for hours. And during this entire time that he was laying there wide awake, he needed to go to the washroom, so he was holding his pee. But again, he had been waiting for several hours and he hadn't heard anything for a while, so he decided that this would be a good time to go to the washroom. So he got up, grabbed his gun, and headed out of the tent at around 3 a.m. As soon as he opened the door to the tent, that is when he noticed that the fire was now out and the string lights that they had hung around the campsite were also completely out. So outside of the tent was in complete darkness. Once he got out of the tent, he headed over to a little area where he was going to go to the washroom, and that is when he heard that same howl so loud that it sounded like it was coming directly beside him in his ear. He said he was absolutely terrified and sprinted back into the tent and dove inside, closing up the door, and he stayed awake the entire night. To this day, the narrator believes that him and his wife had an encounter with the Ozark Howler. This next story is also from Reddit, and this starts by the narrator saying that they lived in Arkansas and that they were an avid hiker. However, calling themselves a very experienced hiker wasn't even doing it justice, as they believed that hiking was a lifestyle. So that is just showing how experienced this person is being in the wild and hiking and camping and all of that fun stuff. This person also includes in their post that they are very familiar with the Ozark mountain range. They have hiked pretty much all of the Ozark National Park. There definitely is areas that they haven't touched, but they were pretty familiar with the area and they've traveled through the area several times and camped all over the park. But as experienced as this person is with the Ozark Mountain area, they say that once you go into the woods, that is when you start to hear a lot of things that you can't explain, and many people who have hiked through the Ozark National Park have also stated that while in the forest they have seen and heard things that they cannot explain as well. The narrator also says that if it wasn't for other hikers hearing and seeing the same things that he had, he would have probably thought that he was going crazy. Narrator of this story also includes the fact that they aren't one who would usually feel unsettled or anything like that in wildlife, near wildlife, in nature. They were pretty comfortable with animals, even the scary ones, because they would always respect them, keep their distance, and just overall be safe. So they were never scared by any of that. But when them and their friend had first heard the screams of what they are assuming was the Ozark Howler, they were absolutely boggled. And once they left this trip, after the first time that they had heard it, they went home and they started researching about the Ozark Howler, and they did find a lot of information about it that led them to believe that the sounds that they were hearing were in fact from this creature. However, they say that there's still a lot that they think that they could learn about this creature, and that is why they were making this post on Reddit, reaching out to people who had more information. But anyways, let's get on to the interesting stuff. The first time that the Ozark Howler ever intrigued this group of people was while they were staying in Jasper, Arkansas. It was around 2:30 a.m. when the narrator had needed something out of his SUV. They were staying in this very old cabin in the area, so he left the cabin heading towards his vehicle, and when he walked outside, that is when he heard the howls of what sounded like a wolf mixed with a human mixed with an elk bulge. He said that after this creature was kind of going off, that is when it sounded as if every coyote for the next 3 miles started howling as well. But he said that they were in the mountain ranges, and so it could have only been a 1 mile radius, but it just sounded like all of the coyotes in the entire area started howling after hearing this sound. And then he said just as quickly as it started, the howling from the coyotes completely stopped, and whatever this creature was started howling alone again. The narrator said that this creature, whatever it was, ended off its kind of like solo of screaming with this almost like whoop 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 sound that he described as sounding like a noise that monkeys made at the zoo. He also noted that whatever this creature was must have been moving extremely quickly, as it sounded as if the sound was coming from one spot, and then just as quickly as it started, it would sound as if it was on the other side of him in a completely different area. Since this time, the narrator and their group of friends decided to set out and try and hunt down whatever the animal was that was making this noise. Now, something to note was that this kind of like hunt that they were going on started in the summertime and ended in the early fall. Since starting this little hunt, the narrator said that they had heard the Ozark Howler several times, but that they hadn't ever heard the creature before midnight, so it was always after that time when they would hear the creature's howls. They also said that they were never in the same area, and it was over a vast majority of land that they heard this creature, similar to that of a mountain lion. He also shared that he only believes that he had ever seen the Ozark Howler one time. Once while in the forest while camping, and in this particular night, the narrator said he wasn't even searching for the Ozark Howler, and this ended up being the time that he believes that they found the creature. They had set up camp on the opposite side of the Buffalo River, and that is when our narrator noticed these huge yellow eyes staring at him so intensely and not breaking its stare. His friend that he had been camping with was so frightened that it wouldn't even look in the direction of this creature, but the narrator says that the creature held this very defensive pose but never ever broke the stare and never moved. He also described this creature as looking similar to that of a large cat or a bear. The narrator and his friend were so frightened that they packed up camp really quick and completely left that area. The narrator says that this is the only time that he believes that he had seen the Ozark Howler. However, he said over the summer they had heard the creature several times, but once the winter rolled around, they completely stopped hearing it altogether. However, the narrator did read somewhere that the creature does hibernate, so that could have been why. And that's kind of something to note about the Ozark Howler. He isn't known, or it isn't known, to attack. There isn't very many encounters where people were attacked by the Ozark Howler, if any. I couldn't find any online myself, but if there is, they aren't very popular. It doesn't happen often, and so that leads me to talking about the theories of what people believe the Ozark Howler is. The first theory that I want to mention is one that isn't believed by many, but I do think that it is worth a mention, and that is that some people believe that the Ozark Howler is just some unidentified creature living out in the wild that is more scared of us than we are of it. This theory kind of runs into another theory where people believe that the Ozark Howler is just some form of crossbreeding that resulted in whatever this creature is, and that because this creature ended up being a combination of a bunch of other creatures, you know, like a bear, a cat, something with horns. It ended up being a super version of this creature, and that this species is extremely smart, and that is why they are never seen. That is why they are rarely seen, because they're really good at hiding and they don't want to be found. The next theory that is speculated online is that maybe the people who've spotted or have claimed to have spotted the Ozark Howler are confused, and that this is just a case of mistaken identity, and that maybe this is a bear or a large cat. Now, large cats are not known to live in this area. However, experts do say that it is possible that some of the large cats could live in that area, and that it isn't completely out of the question. And this mistaken identity theory goes even deeper than that, with some people believing that the Ozark Howler could be a Wendigo, a skinwalker, a person practicing black magic. Some people believe that this could be some kind of off-breed of black shuck or the devil dogs, or something like that. And I just think that that theory is so interesting, because I don't think I've ever come across a cryptid where a theory to explain what the cryptid is that it is a different cryptid that is being mistaken for a new species. I've never come across something like that, so I do think that that theory is pretty interesting. But guys, that is all that I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.